Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us, and let us continue with our discussion. Now, maybe if you can just talk to us about the challenges that you are facing as a council in this transition and what exactly you're doing in addressing these challenges.
Thank you, Vivian. When we say about transition, of course, I've given you the 3 pillars. But what are we transitioning? Transition does not mean taking children back to the community. It means changing the system. Because there must be a system that promoted institutional care. Sure. There must have been a mindset that promoted institutional care. There might have been a legal framework that promoted institutional care. You are changing, you are also integrating the children, transitioning the children. And then finally, you are transitioning the institution itself, the infrastructure, the workforce, the resources. So in terms of transitioning, I'll say that there's a challenge because the first challenge is misunderstanding of the concept. So that people think that when you transition children, when you take children back to the community, reintegrate them, that is transition. So they are asking themselves, they are still finding it very difficult to handle the 2 other issues. And people will ask you, what do we do with these facilities? What do we do with these buildings? So we are systematic in telling the people and passing the information that transition is holistic. Because if you take these children back to the community and you have not addressed the push factors, what will happen? They'll find themselves back. If we are transitioning these children and the resources that were supporting them in the institutions are not supporting them in the community, what will happen? They'll be having a problem. So we are simply saying, support the health care of this child. With the same resources, reach the... For example, if and that child as a family. So it's reaching challenges, staff, and redeployment. If you're a giver, you be community child protection, so that with the same skills, you are still addressing the interest. The decision or has been pursued a drive of the MSM to find approach that way involved parent. So we want strategy says we don't want to leave. We want to identify and strengthen the existing that we can use the means of education. We can use the means of everybody has a role here. Even that person who design roads, how to walk, walk safely. These are the things we are. It's a challenge of bringing everybody in board, which is winning the donor trust of institutional care. That when this money goes to the family, it will not be used for the intended. So again, it also the capacity of identifying what is working. These resources redirected, they can still children. Issues coming in Waja that does not reach us. Some people for intended purpose. How now do they redirected to benefit the interests of the children? And that is why, as a council, we are deliberate in engaging the funders of this, having a dialogue that if our main goal on, if I was an institution, I can reach 400 within the community. This is the way. In terms of return.
From the
automatically when, I mean, say 2018, you know, 2020, it was seen like, this is why we went to look at this, and I invite you. We had a with even the institutions, and I'm happy today that some of them that were very resistant at the beginning.
Okay.
Why? You understand you cannot adopt that change. So because they did it well, and this is workable, we have that have completely transitioned, even with their resources, and they can come working, and it entire community.
All right.
Yes.
To finish this conversation without talking about children, it is reform the needs.
Disability is a legislation. There's so on children matters, we take a special category, but they are level.
True.
And I know you would ask this, that being abandoned, people, a neighbor, and a good learner goes to somebody who has also done it. So as a country, neighbors, for instance, how did they deal with the issues of an aspect we call the problem? So you'll say the problem is disability. Then you ask, the mother carry a child, give birth to this child, years, and then abandon that child? Is that they are, we talk them, but when they hit you as a person, that is when you realize the impact. So we have learned as people do not abandon them, not because they don't love, also through. A mother of them is a child who requires 24-hour care. Can this mother be engaged in any productive? So the question is, have you the four? So what do I, that these children with 3 years to 5 years, trying to see whether this, and that is why we say some of these can children. If I have a child with a, take that child, she will be care, therapy, and all those from work. That even some parents were coming out and said, I'm the mother of this child, I abandoned D, but I can have a, I want. So even there went down. This in the also changed to this. Yeah, where the it has really gone. Our policy, the national policy, are very systematic and very approaching issues. Unless we understand the in it, but once we address, and also the cost of people with disability, Act in Section 20, children are entitled to free medical care, free education, that they are free of state. So, think progressively, because again, it's the cost that also making them to be able. Disability is well addressed with the Children Act strategy.
Well understood. To an end of talk you know, as a student, I with the same
Jamie.
Now, what is in all of this? What is the solutions in all of this? In particular,
that it is holistic. Matters of children, we must approach it holistically. Each one of us must ask ourselves, what is my role? Community. That child leaves the situation. Have you done the necessary measures to ensure that that child does not go to the community? Initially, in the African context, when somebody, even a young mother, would have died and then living along maybe a 2 months or 3 months, the community would sit down and say, now, so-and-so is gone, but who is another breastfeeding mother who can breastfeed this child? So we are going back to gatekeeping mechanisms. So the role of the community is let them be gatekeepers. Let them ensure that only under very unavoidable circumstances, children leave the community. Let them promote the positive values within the community. The faith-based organizations, we are relying on them as the advocates of the children matters. They reach a great number. Assume that if one of the Sundays, they just say that today we are going to preach about raising the child within the community. So we are relying on them as our advocates on matters of children. The state will take the center stage in terms of leading and supporting the 3 pillars. But each one of us, including you, Vivian, including KBC, has a role in educating the public on matters of child care. So each one of us, there is nobody who can say I don't have a role. No, we have a role. We just need to know, how do I do my role? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The role of the state.
The role of the state, I've said, is to take lead, to coordinate the programs, to bring actors together, and to provide the necessary support mechanisms, and even creating enabling environment for the implementation of this. Yes. All
right.
Yeah.
Let's finish up with the milestones this far, since the implementation or since the launching of this reform in 2022, right?
Yeah.
To date, what are some of the milestones that you would say you've achieved?
A very big milestone. The first milestone is that there is change in terms of adopting the care reform. We are moved from the resistance, and a number of people, including the donors, and I writing to the council and approaching the council, how we have understood it, we want now to engage in it. That's a milestone. 2, we have seen a number of children already going to the institution. And remember, in terms of care reform implementation journey, it's supposed to be a 3-phased. So we have just concluded the first phase. And the first phase was to do what? Advocacy, enlightening the public so that we have demonstrating and also having systems on work. But within that phase, I'm happy to report that a number of institutions have also completely transitioned. I've said that the number has moved. Actually, it was 47 to 45. We are now at 43 something. So that tells you we are moving ahead.
That's in 3 years.
Yes. And we are now moving now to the real, now from 2026 to 2029. That is now the real implementation phase. And then now the last phase will just be now review and all that. So that by 2032, we'll again come and evaluate ourselves. We were having 45,000. How many have we integrated? How many have we found them alternative family care? And what is the problem that is still remaining? So as I can say, the progress is so good because we have also done some legislative changes. Remember, I told you that it has to start with the systems. The system has changed. Now we are going now to the children, reintegrating. So even today, we have a number of people outside there, every county, prospective foster carers who are just waiting so that if you get an abandoned child, you just tell them and say, I'm ready for this child.
All right. Yeah. We're living in a digital era.
Yes.
That is, you know, we can't dispute that. And this also brings about many things, and this also may expose children to different vices, you know, including, you know, online abuse, exploitation of the children and trafficking and all of that. How are we addressing this matter?
One of the reasons as to why we reviewed the Children Act was to address the emerging issues. And one of the emerging issues was issues of online child protection. In 2001, how many children were accessing computers and phones? They were not there. Yeah. But today, we have a child who cannot hold a pen and write, but can easily navigate a phone. So cognizant of the aspect that online child protection was a concern, the government and even through the Director of Children Services, as a whole section that deals with online child protection. The DCI as a whole section that deals with online child protection and counter-trafficking. So we are also cognizant of this, and a number of measures working together with ICTA, the Communications Authority. Recently, you saw that they launched the Child Online Safety. Yeah? Just to have as a guideline on how to handle matters of children and ensure that our children are safe. But for this to succeed, it starts with the caregivers. How safe is your child without your phone? So it's again coming to building the capacity of caregivers to ensure that when their children use these online gadgets, they are also safe. And they have also controls and measures on what their children navigate through those phones and those computers. So on-child safety is an emerging issue, and we are confronting it head-on, and we are moving together. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Kennedy Owino, for joining us for this conversation. Maybe if I may allow you to give us your final remarks in just a minute, in less than a minute.
Thank you, Vivian. My final remarks is a clarion call to all that are listening, that our children is our future. If we want to destroy the future of this country, it's very simple. Let us destroy our children. So we need all of us to be on board on matters of children, to protect our children, and to realize that we have a key role that we must play. Whether you are a government, whether you are a state actor, whether you are a caregiver, whether you are an institution of care. And when we play this role together, we shall have a future that we'll be proud to live in as a country and say, this is the country that we made some 20 years back, some 10 years back. Until and unless our children are safe, our future is safe.
Best way to end Mr. Kennedy Owino, who's the Principal Children Officer, National Council of Children Services, Kenya. And this is where we end this conversation, but don't you go too far. Good Morning Kenya gets to continue. Mike Megwe will be back in a moment with a different conversation, so stay with us.